Florida, and Oklahoma. Get woke and vote. Get on out there and vote. Here to talk to us, our party chair, the chair of the Democratic Party, Tom Perez, as promised. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Mark, and good morning to all of your listeners. It's always great to be with you.
It's a pleasure to have you, my friend. Big developments in the party's annual meeting over the weekend. Before we talk about Superdelegates, I know everybody's focused on that, but one is not getting a lot of coverage. Tom, if you could go over with us, there was some significant reform in terms of how Democratic caucuses will be carried out from now on, wasn't there?
Absolutely. We had a really robust package of reforms that we passed. We wanted to make both our primaries and our caucuses more accessible. We want more primaries and less caucuses in 2020, and that's exactly what's going to happen because when you have more primaries, you have more turnout. In states that still use caucuses, and we respect that, we want to make sure that they're more inclusive. So if you're a shift worker, you don't have to win the boss lottery or take time off without pay. If you're a veteran and you're deployed and you want to vote absentee, you can do that. If you're a person with a disability or a mobility impairment, you ought to be able to get into the site. And so we're making those primaries more plentiful. We're making caucuses more accessible. We're encouraging same-day registration so that people can participate. I'm excited about those reforms. Again, it's all about growing the party. It's all about uniting the party, and it's all about restoring people's trust in the party.
And that's good to know. Now, uh, we did not go so far as to move toward open primaries, though, correct?
Well, that will be up. That's going to be up to states, and
I see.
so
Okay.
that because we don't have the ability, Mark, to tell a state what to do. Some states have them, some states don't.
I see. I
Uh,
see.
but but one thing that these reforms do is again making it easier to become a Democrat. And
Hmm.
same day registration is one way to do it. In the state of New York, you have to become a Democrat something like 9 months before the primary. What happens if you get captivated by a candidate 9 days before the primary? You ought to
Right.
be able to
Right.
get out there and participate and vote. And I'm confident that New York will change that law to make it easier for people who have seen that Democrat that they fall in love with to participate. And this isn't just the presidential primaries. This is about elections up and down the ballot. We've got to make sure that people can participate. One of the trends that is very troubling and very much informed our work is you look at young people. When Barack Obama was elected president, the most typical millennial voter, and by the way, millennials are the biggest voting bloc now in America. The most typical millennial voter was a registered Democrat
Right.
back in 2008, and now by almost 10 points. And this trend didn't just start a year or two ago. This trend started 2010, 2011. The most typical millennial voter by almost 10% is a registered unaffiliated voter.
Mm.
And if you go to a place like Colorado, put age aside, the most typical voter is a registered unaffiliated voter in Colorado. And so we've got to understand that while young people, I think, share our values, and that's why we've been doing really, really well with them, they're reluctant many are reluctant to take on the Democratic Party label and sign up. And that's what we're trying to do in all of these reforms is to make a very clear statement that we believe in you, that we're listening to you, that we want you to be part of the Democratic Party family. And as a result, we're taking these actions to make sure that the grassroots has a really important seat at the table and a voice in what we do as a party.
And one of the obviously biggest actions of all that was taken. Tom Perez is with us 9 minutes past the hour, chair of the Democratic Party. One of the biggest actions taken of all time, of course, was super delegate reform. So now the super delegates will not vote on the first ballot when it comes to the nominating process. That's pretty much the new measure, correct?
Correct. Super delegates have never decided the selection of the nominee. Super delegates have been in place, Mark, since
Hmm.
1984. And in every election, every primary process, superdelegates have not decided the selection of the nominee. But I'll tell you, there's many, many voters who believe they've affected the outcome. Because, by way of example, let's say the Iowa caucus is about to take place. We're a week out, so nobody's voted yet across the country. But under the old system, you would have a situation where one candidate for president had accumulated 300 delegates to the convention. And people ask the question, especially young people, how is it the case that nobody's voted, but one person already has accumulated 300 delegates on that trip up the mountain to get that nomination? And so when you have what the situation I expect we'll have in 2020, where you have maybe a dozen people running for president, all but one are going to be disappointed. They're not going to make it up to the mountaintop. And what is really important for us, and this is a big goal, is we want to make sure that everybody feels like their candidate got a fair shake. And I think this compromise, and it was passed overwhelmingly, and it was a real team effort. We had support across the landscape of the Democratic Party. And I think this is going to go a long way toward growing our party, uniting our party, and restoring trust. That is, I think, the secret sauce of success in winning elections.
Those registered, unaffiliated millennials, do you think this will be these measures will be attractive to them in particular, Tom?
Absolutely, and I say that not really speculating, but I say that based on many, many conversations we've had with organizations like the Young Democrats, the College Democrats. I mean, you look at Michigan, you look at Wisconsin in the 2016 presidential. The Jill Stein vote tipped the balance in those states. If those voters had stayed home in the Democratic Party, we would have won those two states. And the reality is, for many young people, they share our values. And if you go down item by item, whether it's college affordability, women's reproductive health, fair wages, health care, they're on our side, but they have been reluctant to join the family. And again, we heard very, very loudly and clearly from young Democrats who are represented at our table that this is something that's really, really important. And I think these measures are going to go a long way toward reversing that trend.
Yeah, and I hope so too. And I hope those who are listening would agree and encourage this. I think one of the biggest selling points is that our party, Tom, no matter what, represents the future. It represents progressive values and ideals, and it represents the biggest 10 of all. Be it, people of color, be it women, being the LGBTQIA community, and all of those different community concerns, the working class, students trying to do something about student debt and loan, those who are in need of health care, and the procedural matters. Tom, long after you and I are gone, there'll still be these procedural issues, but the best way to address them is within the tent. We can still struggle around those things. And so we have these reforms. They should work. But 8 years from now, we want to say, well, we want to do something different. The best way to do it is to be involved in the organization to make that difference, isn't it?
I couldn't agree more, Mark, with your assessment. And that's why we have taken these steps, because one thing we see is that, when we allow fear to be put on the ballot, as occurred in 2016, the consequences are devastating to all the issues that you and I and your listeners care about. I mean, we have 70 days till the most important election of our lifetime. Our health care is on the ballot. Voting rights is on the ballot.
Right.
Women's reproductive health is on the ballot. Our identity as a nation, our future as a democracy is on the ballot. And we put ourselves in this situation for a number of reasons. And we're never going to let that happen again. We've learned from our mistakes. We need to organize everywhere. We need to clearly articulate what we stand for. And what we stand for is America that works for everybody. not just a few at the top. An America in which health care is a right for all. An America in which we believe in second chances. An America in which it doesn't matter where you were born, who you worship, who you love, what your first language was. You can reach for the stars in this country, and that opportunity is feeling elusive to people. And the Democratic Party needs to really step up, and that's what we've done. We understood that we needed to change. We understood that we needed to do a better job of listening. We understood that we needed to build a bigger table so that people, young people, but not only young people, feel welcome in our big tent. And I think we're making real progress. You look at the momentum out there right now, Mark. It's 70 days till the weekend. That's what I say every day in our office.
Right.
70 days until the most important election of our lifetime. I see the momentum out there. I know in my home state of Maryland, for instance, we can make history and elect Ben Jealous.
That's right.
Down in Georgia, where I was a couple of weeks ago, we can make incredible history down there with Stacey Abrams. I feel very confident that we can win, not only take over the House, but I think we have a real shot of winning the Senate as well. Are we the underdogs? Of course. But we were the underdogs in Alabama last year for that Senate race. And when we organize and when we communicate our values and we're taking these steps to build that trust in the Democratic Party, that's how we win. And we have enthusiasm on our side. We have the issues on our side. What we're fighting for commands the respect of the vast majority of the American people. And that is a big part of why I feel very optimistic heading into this home stretch of 70 days.
And one of the practical issues right before us, and you talk about the Senate, is Kavanaugh, isn't it, Tom? I mean, and we don't have time to get into all of it, but, you all have filed suit against this administration for what they did in terms of hacking, their collusion with Russia. Every day there's another story about this administration and its cronies' corruption. And yet they would dare put forward a Supreme Court nominee without all of his documents being revealed and expect the American people to just accept that.
Well, and to put an even finer point on it, in 2016, when there was an opening, they said you can't do this during an election year. Well, we're in an election cycle right now, so let's hold them to their own standard. And we're in an election cycle where you have, again, as you correctly point out, information gaps. This
Right.
is a lifetime appointment. And the reason why they're not sharing information about Judge Kavanaugh is because it's damning information.
Yeah.
And they don't want it coming out. That it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. They don't want people to see the extreme positions he's taken. The Supreme Court is one of the ultimate checks and balances on overreach by the executive branch. And we cannot allow this to move forward without having all the information. And we're going to keep fighting. And people say, well, you can't succeed. Well, they said that about the Affordable Care Act. They were going to repeal that 60 days after Donald Trump took office. And, we kept fighting. So if your listeners think, well, I can't do anything, yes, we can. Because grassroots power is just the remarkable tool that we have at our disposal. And the organizing that's been going on around this country. I remember my day with you down in Memphis to mark Dr. King's 50th anniversary. The energy down there, the most important thing we can do to honor Dr. King's memory on this, the 50th year of his assassination, is to get out there and vote. And get out there and vote in every jurisdiction across this country, because when we vote, we take back our values.
That's right. And folks, you can do that today, as a matter of fact. If you're in Arizona, Florida, and Oklahoma, you can vote today. Go to iwillvote.com if you haven't. Make sure that your registration is intact. If you have questions about voting, text the DNC at 43367. That's 43367. Big news out of the DNC, big reforms. A lot of people are concerned about these issues. They have been addressed, and we move forward. We move forward in unity in November. I've been saying, Tom, there we will have I will not tolerate any disagreements. This is me with, and you can quote me. Say Mark Thompson say, "Are we not in? There's no disagreements. We're not going to disagree about anything between now and the next 70 days. Now, after that, if we want to flesh some things out, fine. But for now, there is nothing that we need to disagree about. I think we all are on the same page about, and those are the priorities: dealing with what is best for our families, what's best for us to make a living, what's best for us in terms of having health care, what's best for us in terms of who goes on these courts, and what's best for us in terms of bringing a majority back to the House and Senate. That's it. Those are the priorities. And folks, let's just stay focused on that. Right, Tom?
Amen. This is the most important election of our lifetime. We came out of our meeting at the DNC last weekend united. We've got more wind at our back. We're focused like a laser on winning elections up and down the ballot. We can do this as long as people turn out. IWillVote.com. Thank you for telling your listeners about the importance of getting out there and voting.
All right, man. Thank you. Tom Perez, folks, the chair of the DNC, and also former head of the Civil Rights Division, Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights in the Justice Department. Tom's been a soldier fighting for a long time, and so he knows the right thing to do, and he's always done it, and so we appreciate him. Congratulations on the successes of the weekend, and this won't be the last. We got 70 days, so Tom will be back with us, folks. We're going to keep beating this drum. Okay, man?
Absolutely. Have a great day.
All right, you too, Tom. Good to talk to you, man. Thank you for joining us. All right, bye-bye. 866-99-SIRIUS, 866-997-47